Um, Shalom, everyone. For those of you who don't know, my name is Adi, and I'm the community Shlicha for Reading and Lancaster in Pennsylvania. And I'm very excited for today. So today we're having a Tu B'Shvat program, but a special Tu B'Shvat program, from a different, angle. And I'm very, very, very happy to host here one of my best friend back from home, from Israel. We actually know already 6 years ago, I want to say. We're friends already 6 years. And I'm very, very excited to introduce you Keshet. Keshet is a community shlicha in St. Paul, Minnesota. So we're excited about the snow that we have right now, but she already lived it in for a while. Keshet grew up in an holistic home with a strong connection to the garden and plants, with the influence of her mom, which is a masseuse, and I hope I say it correctly, acupuncturist. Keshet holds a certificate of treating aromatherapy and Bach flower remedies from Rediman College in Israel. So now, Keshet, the stage is all yours. Toda rabba 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 for joining us and doing it. And one last thing I will say, if you have any questions during the talk, you're welcome to, if Keshet is talking about something and you have a question, you're welcome to unmute yourself and ask, or if it's something that you think you can keep to the end. Keshet, the stage is yours.
תודה רבה, שלום שלום, ערב טוב. So my name is Keshet. Keshet in Hebrew means rainbow, but that's just the beginning. So let's just jump ahead and see how can we enrich our life with a little bit of nature, something that I personally always like to do. So first of all, before we go any further, happy Tu B'Shvat. Tu B'Shvat is a great opportunity for us to connect to nature, even if it's covered in a meter of snow. But we're not talking about that right now. And I want us to, first of all, get to know me before we jump into the topic. So as Adi introduced me, I grew up loving nature in a very ecological home. And it's even on the borderline hippie because my full name is Keshet Rainbow Warrior Berlinsky Edry, comes from the Native American legend of the Rainbow Warrior, talking about how when people will cut down all the trees and pollute all the water and realize that they can't eat money, a warrior will come down from the rainbow and teach humanity how to treat the environment better. That's how my dad called me. And that's kind of how we started everything. So I'm pretty much the ecological messiah. Let's see if I can actually live up to the hype of it. But as I said, this is something that I grew up with. When my mom treated us when we were sick, there was no such thing as, I don't know how to say acamol, like Benadryl. No Benadryl, no any real, I don't want to say real medicine, but most of the treatment that I got was essential oils or herbalism and a lot of holistic medicine as a child. So this is my mom right here. And in top of that, she always loved to take us outdoor to nature. So when she was joining me to school trips and stuff like a chaperone, she would always ask, what's the name of that flower? And what's the name of that flower? And if I didn't know the name, then I wasn't her daughter anymore. So that's kind of the influence. And that's something that really stayed with me for my entire life. So when I was out of the army, I chose to do a 3-month trip in the US. And the first place that I went to visit was actually Pipestone, Minnesota, which is right here on top, a very different hairstyle. But they gave me a really great gift because I really wanted to learn about the Native American culture and their history and their connection to the earth. And they were able to do that. After the trip, I went to Rediman, got my certificate. And this is a planted garden that I worked before the army. So this is something that have been following me my entire life. And even now when I'm a shlicha, the plant world is very much my world. I mean, I love to give people advice about things or to actually treat people because I am a therapist in some of the things. So this is something that I would always carry with me into my world. So we were talking about the Native American culture. And when I was in Pipestone, I learned an amazing legend that kind of brings a background of how did we start using herbs? This is a question of, legends are here to explain how the world works. So the background of this legend, and there's a few different sources from depend which tribe you're asking, the Cherokee believed that it all started with the bears. The bears all through a council and talk about how human beings are taking advantage of the situation. Once upon a time, everybody was living harmony, and the mankind only took as much as they needed. After a few years of civilization, the humans started to take more than what they just needed to eat and to survive as a tribe, and the bears were really angry about it. So they threw a council and decided, how can we punish the people for taking something that is not theirs? And they came out with the idea of using the human weapons against them. That didn't really work because bears don't have hands. And then the deers threw their own council, and the deer said, each time a human doesn't declare their intentions in a hunt, we will inflict a disease on the human. And once all of the other animals heard what they were going to do, that was kind of the decision that all the diseases that we now know comes from people hurting animal kingdom. So each animal can bring you a different type of disease. For example, fish can bring you nightmares, and deers bring you joint pains and all those type of different things. And then the flowers and the plants heard about the animal's decision, and they decided that's not a very nice thing to do for the people because, there's different type of people and there's different type of reasons of why they're hunting and doing something. So the flowers decided all together, and all the trees and all the plantations decided that there will be the remedies for the disease came from the animals. So each plant actually holds within them the cure for something else. And that is kind of a beautiful base of how can plants cure our disease. This is just one way and one tradition of looking at herbalism and the use of herbalism. I just really loved it because it kind of means that we have some allies in our side, and we're here to work together in harmony and not to harm one another. So we said the word herbalism. What is herbalism? We all know herbalism in different fields of life. Herbal medicine or herbalism is the study of that long word and a use of medical plants. Plants have been the base of medical treatments throughout most of human history, as we all know, and the ancient ones are 100,000 years ago. So as long as we human being alive, we have been in communication with our surroundings, and we've been using our surroundings as a way to heal ourselves. And most of us know that a lot of the pharmacy that we're using today and a lot of the drugs that we're using today started eventually from certain plants and certain trees that came to cure certain disease. This is something that we all know. Today, this is actually a surprising fact. The World Health Organization estimates that 80% of the populations of some Asian and African countries presently use medical herbalism for some aspects of primary healthcare. So some aspects in the world are still using the natural way of plants as their primary health system because they can't afford a regular pharmacy, or they don't have access to what we would call medical care. So this is something that has still been used and has been used since the beginning of time. everything kind of changed in 1897. So as we know, we've been using plants for this entire time. Anybody know what happened in 1897 that kind of changed the game? Our good friend aspirin came to life. So every culture almost around the world were using the willow tree, the bark of the willow tree, as a cure for headaches. This is something that we know. We find it in ancient Greek, we find it in Egypt, and we find it in Native Americans. You can find it literally all across the world. In 1897 was the first time that a lab was able to synthesize the active material in the aspirin that actually caused the pain relief, and to create it synthetically in a lab. And in 1899 was the first time that people actually started to distribute this drug. So once again, we're using plants for the entire time that we've been living here, and different cultures use different plants, sometimes for the same disease and sometimes very differently. In some cultures, aspirin is a pain relief, and in some ones, they're helping for digestive system. But we are using the same amount of herbs around us. If we look at the Jewish tradition, and we are here to celebrate the New Year's of trees in the Jewish life, we have a lot of plants and a lot of trees being mentioned in the Bible. The most famous one is Mor veLevona, and the most famous quote is Mizot olam min hamidbar, ketimrot ashan mekuteret mor ulevona mikol avkat rochel. And when we translate this, it's describing, this is from Song of Songs, so this is a part of a dialogue between King Solomon and God. And King Solomon is describing God rising up as a cloud of smoke from insect. That's how you call it when you burn an insect, right? You know, when you burn things for the smell. Yes, okay. So
it's called incense.
Incense. Okay, thank you. So they're describing this big pile of smoke of that because those two plants, the mor and the levona, were the most famous plants, has been used as that in sacred places, okay, which is the myrrh and the frankincense. They have horrible name in English, but beautiful name in Hebrew. And we're going with the Hebrew translation because you all know what I'm talking about now. So this is the levona and this is the mor, it's more darker. Both of them are not the actual leaves, but it's the, saraf באנגלית. I don't know how to, it's kind of like the glue that comes out from the tree. You know what I'm talking about?
It's like
sap.
sticky.
The sap?
Yes, yes.
The sap?
The sap. So those are the things that we're using in these two scents, which is really interesting because usually when we're talking about scent, we're using leaves like dried sage or dried lavender, but here we're using the actual raw material that we burned up in the temple. And some of you might think, why those two plants? And these are really, really famous as sacred plants, not only in Jewish culture, but in a lot of different cultures. And when we want to zoom in into each of these plants, let's see what they give us. So first of all, it's antiseptic. That means that if I'm burning this, it kills the bacteria around me. So it purifies everything around it. We also have anti-inflammatory. That means if you have any asthma disease or difficult breathing, that's something that helps you. Antifungal, that means anti-fungus. So once again, we're talking about purifying and clearing our air. It heals skin. It stimulates blood circulation. If we're in an act of prayer, a lot of the people get sleepy. So this helps us stay focused and concentrated as well. That's our mor. If we're looking at our levona, it's also antiseptic, anti-inflammatory. It's also something that it helps us with the toxin in our blood. So it makes us want to go to the bathroom more. because it clears out toxin in our system. It's relaxing, it strengthens us, and it creates skin renewal and cells renewals. So this is really interesting by choosing these two as the major purifying herbs that we're using in our temples to use. That's really interesting, because if we imagine back in the time, there's a lot of people kind of in a closed small room, and a way for us to keep it healthy is to bring these antiseptic and antifungalic plants into our surroundings. So this is something that makes a lot of sense. And once again, we have been using this in different cultures all across the world. So just 2 tips about Morve Levona. Today, you can still use them, not really as incense, but more from essential oils that I would recommend. They don't smell nice, which is pretty funny. Only the Levona smell nice. The myrrh is very bitter smell. If we want to look a little bit deeper into each of our scent, first of all, I want us to notice our tree. This is our myrrh tree, very small leaves. Their fruits looks kind of like pine cones. You can't really tell in this picture. The oil work on the respiratory system, so it's good for us now too. Stimulates the immune system, stimulates the blood circulation, good for treating dilation and thinning of the veins. You know how the veins can get really, really wide or really, really thin. This helps us. And it strengthens a weak digestive system. And if we look at the Levona, they're very similar trees, which is also really interesting. And they're both desert trees. So again, we're using our surrounding in a beneficiary way. It smoothes the mind, stimulates and sharpens the senses, help us slow down and deepen our breath, which again, if we're talking about prayers and what we're doing when we're praying, this is something that's really, really helpful for us. And it helps with treating fatigues, wound, bruises, kind of help you come alive when we're talking about this type of plant. So this is really, really interesting. And not only that, this was proven in recent researches as an antidepressant, like clinically proved as this tree. So once again, if we're thinking about a prayer, a sanctuary, this is a happy place, this is a calming place, this is a clean space that we create once we burn these scents. So after we kind of gave a wide background on plants and how can we use plants, and how people have been using plants, how can we put some herbalism in our life? First of all, let me tell you why should we do this. When done right, herbs can give us answers to things that modern medicine can't. This has been proven. This also helps the mental stage a lot better and a lot natural than other depressants. And it also works very fast. Once again, when used correctly. Unfortunately, because plants grow everywhere, everybody can claim to be a herbalist and can give you different medications or different tinctures that not necessarily are working. On the other hand, we already know that they have active materials inside their plants, so they can also be dangerous. Sometimes you can get OD'd just from a plant. You don't have to get OD'd just from a medicine. So when you find the right therapist that has the right tools to give you, you can actually find a much wider and a much more natural answer to a lot of your issues. And as I said, this is something that I have grew up with. So this is a part of my everyday life that you can experience naturally. Okay. So the first thing, and this is the first thing that I use and take everywhere, is lavender oil. Lavender oil is a lot more than something to make you feel nice at the end of the day. How did lavender oil came to be? The chemist who actually invented it discovered it after being burned severely all across his body, and he jumped into a tub of lavender oil. So lavender oil is primarily to use for burned skin and to hard burns. So third degree burned and up. This is something that I have tested on myself many, many times, and it works. It has the ability to renew the skin and to heal wounds in a way that won't cause a scar, which is amazing, because if you use a good, pure lavender oil directly on the wound, it can prevent a scar, or at least make it smaller or not as significant as it used to be. So that's the first thing. The second thing is it's also antiseptic, so it kills all the bacteria in open wounds. And this is like, yesh po, chat is, okay, with you again. And the ability, if we're talking about the emotional world, it's most of the time connected to migraines. You can send them when you have migraines. It helps you calm down. It really helps when we're talking about blood pressure levels as well. So this is the lavender oil. I use it as a first aid kit. I don't have anything else in my bag other than lavender oil. You can put this directly on an open wound. It will disinfect it and it will cure it very fast. And last but not least, it's also it relieves pain as well. So this is something that would actually make it easier for you if you have an open wound. Key things to know about essentials oils, because as we said, everybody can, yes. Tova, please go ahead. You're on mute.
Tovia, you need to unmute yourself.
It's a big never mind. A friend of mine was having trouble getting in. I don't know if you had to let them in, and now they figured it out and they're here. So yay, everything's good. So let's go on and I'll catch her up later.
Okay, perfect. So we're talking about how to buy an essential oil. This is really important because essential oils can be extremely powerful and strong. Please don't put every essential oil on your body directly because it can cause harm. Lavender, you can. When can you do that on your body? First of all, the best practice is to have the full name of the plant. Lavender is just the common name of the plant. Lavandula is the full plant name. We have to have it for us to trust the bottle. Okay, it has to have the botanic name of the flower. Second thing is, where did the plant came from? Here it tells us that it comes from Bulgaria. It's really important to know these things because it might be less, quality of a flower. You need to know. Most of the time, it would also tell us on what part of the plant this oil has been used. We all know that the oil of lavender is used from flower, but sometimes they also put the stems and the leaves. That makes our oil not as pure as the rest of the oils. And sometimes the oil itself is bad. Essential oils can get bad if they've been heated, if they haven't been protected, and that can actually cause you extreme infections and harm your skin. So you have to notice where that oil came from to buy it from a good company that you trust. And last but not least, make sure it's 100% essential oil and not mixed with like orange and lavender. That's not a real essential oil. Do not put it on your skin. And the second thing, oil in almond oil. You need to make sure that those both quality materials. Most of the time, I would recommend buy almond oil and buy essential oil and mix them together yourself. Don't buy a product that is a mix of both of them because the essential oil can be bad and then it makes the whole tincture toxic. So it's a good rule to only have your essential oils, keep them in a dark and cold place, never next to the sun because they get bad very fast. Those are just a few of the common practice of how to buy. A small tool that would help us kind of decide, as you can see here, it only says lavender, it says pure oil. How do you know? It doesn't give us any other information. Here at least we see that we have the full botanic name of the flower, so you know which one of them to buy. please make sure you do this because it's really important.
Keshet, there is a question in the chat. What is the
Yeah.
best base oil?
Depends who and for what. That's a great question. Pregnant women, Esevchita, wheat herb, like wheat sprout. How do you say it? Rega. Esevchita is for pregnant women because it really helps with circulation and the skin.
Do you mean wheatgrass?
Yes, wheatgrass. Jojoba oil is also very good, but it has a pigment, so it depends on what you're using. Hair products, I would definitely recommend jojoba oil. The safest to go would be almond oil, but try and find it from a cold press and not a hot press. And then that's the best quality of oil for almond oil. Yes, those are the 3 ones that I would say.
Toda.
Sure. Another way that we can incorporate herbs in our own life is eat orange, especially now during winter. Why do we eat orange? First of all, there's a reason that they're seasonal for now. All of the citrus fruit are now blooming. This is the time to eat them. They have a high percentages of vitamin C, which is great for us during the winter time. Another thing that orange foods has is beta carotene. Beta carotene has amazing amount of pros. Some of them are over here. It helps reduce cancer. It's antioxidant. It helps with vitamin A, which we don't have a lot during the winter time. So it really nurtures us. If we're talking Chinese medicine, it strengthens your qi. So it gives you all the nutrients that you need right now. It helps you keep warm during the winter time. So eat orange while we're in the winter. Each season brings their own different types of fruits that we need to make sure that we're eating. But as I said, the flowers are kind of in our benefits and they want to help us. So they're blooming right when we need them. So make sure you have your orange foods. If you're feeling cold, and not just a regular cold, if you are physically cold, if your toes are cold or your fingers are cold, use ginger and cinnamon. Cinnamon works on our entire blood system. It energizes us, it warms us, it also helps us manage our blood pressure. So what I recommend in tea, take a big pot of water, put the root of the ginger as is, or cut it into big chunks with a few cinnamon sticks, cover it and let it boil for at least 2 to 3 hours. That's the best way to get the most out of the tree and the root, because there's hard, it's not like tea. Tea usually use a lot of high notes when we're talking about our aromatherapy. And when we're talking about roots, we really want to get all that we can from the roots. So you can really boil them for a few hours. It gets really, really consecrated and really great. So you would feel heat hot instantly, and it would also really help your immune system during the winter time. Last but not least, Archinitzea is the queen of winter. This is the best immune system remedy you would ever want for your entire life. We use the root. There's 3 different types of Archinitzea. You can all do your research and look for it. Just make sure it's the root and not the flower. The flower is nice for tea, but it's not the same effect if we're wanting the real immune system. This prevents you from being sick, period. Has been proven, tested, and worked. So I strongly recommend Archinitzea. And this is just a treat from my mom because she always liked to end presentation with this. If you would like to have a natural deodorant, she swears by it. I think natural deodorant are overrated, but each to their own. You can use 4 tablespoons of coconut oil. Make sure it's a good coconut oil. Once again, cold press. It doesn't have to be organic. Just make sure that it's a good source of oil. Corn flour. I'm talking about the real powder, even the almost like starch type of corn flour, so not the grains. Baking soda and a few drops of good essential oil that we learned how to buy and not the crap that they buy at Walmart, because it's really important and dangerous sometimes. So you mix it all up. You keep it in a cold place because the oil can melt. and you use it as deodorant as much as you need. And that's about it. Anybody has any questions that I haven't?
Yeah.
Yes.
Can I go?
Yeah, sure.
The last one that you showed, the flower, I can't pronounce it like the U.
Alchinitzea?
Yes.
Yes.
What do you do with the root? Like, do you just go and buy the flower and use the root for what? Like, I mean, you said for anything, but how do I use it?
I would recommend the tincture, which is kind of like a liquid. It means that they put the root in alcohol, took out all the active elements of it, and it's really contained. So either a tincture, or you can also find it in capsules. If you can find it as a liquid is better. And I would take it 3 times a day to keep your immune system during the winter time.
So can you find it in, I mean, I get essential oils. Like I have that Frankenstein.
Mm-hmm.
Can you
Frankincense.
find it? Can I find it in there too? Like
You should be able to find it in any nature store. Yeah, it's a very famous use. Just make sure again that it says that it's a root extract. And once again, it can be a tincture or it can be a capsule. I wouldn't take it during the summertime or during times that you feel well, just around times that you know that your immune system is a little bit weak, you have less sun, you're less outside, you're more at home. I would take it as a boost for your immune system for sure. Yes. Tova.
Okay. There's this stuff called airborne, or it used to be called something airport or something, but you used to take it if you were going to go on an airplane around a lot of people that might be sick, and it had a lot of echinacea in it. I don't know if it said root or just echinacea. And so it's a little fizzy. You drop it in, you drink this fizzy drink, almost like Alka-Seltzer it used to be called. Anyway, it's a fizzy drink. You drop the tablet in, it bubbles, and then you drink it. Is that any good or is that fake?
Most of the time, I would say it depends on the company. Truth, it all depends on how the material is being used and if there's anything left from the actual flower. Because there's so much when we're talking about holistic medicine, some are using 100% of active materials from the plants, and some are only using their energy. You can't really market it as an antiseptic if you're using a flower energy. Not that I'm saying that it doesn't treat some things, it just doesn't treat specifically that. So I would take a look at the list of the ingredients, also the date. If something can live forever, I would definitely question that something. Those are the 2 things that I would look into. And what's else in that mixture? What's going on? Yeah. Most of the time, the label gives us all the information that we need when we're talking about this.
And the second thing is the last thing, the deodorant. You said corn flour. Do you mean cornstarch, which is real powdered?
Yes. It's the real powdery white thing.
It's called cornstarch.
Yeah. We call it corn flour, which is not helpful at all.
Okay.
Yeah. If there's a company that I recommend, personally, no, I don't. I think different companies have different products, so I never go into the marketing game. I also buy all of mine from Israel because Israel, I haven't found a company yet that gives me all the information that I want here. So most of the things that I get are either come originally from France or England. Those are the best places to get essential oils and flower remedies for sure.
I mean, I feel like I get here like Young Living, but a lot of people get doTERRA. I feel like those are the most known ones. I mean, I don't know if they're the best ones, but I did one time got something at Whole Foods and it wasn't like 100% essential oil.
Yeah, you need to, it
says it says 100% essential oil.
But does it give you the full botanic name of the flower? Does it tell you where it comes from? Okay, that's good. That's great. They don't lie about those type of things. I mean, if it says the botanic name and where it comes from, then you can trust it. it comes with the point that you also can smell the oil and see if they got bad or not. Sometimes the company can be great, but Whole Foods just left it in the sun for a full day and then the oil are bad. The best way to test it is first of all to open the can, see how it smells. If it doesn't smell the best, put it in a diffuser and see how the smell works after it's been on water. If it still doesn't smell good, say goodbye. In general, as a rule, on your skin, only put lavender oil and rose oil and chamomile oil. That's it. Those are the only 3 that you should put on your skin automatically. The rest, try and put it in a base oil so it wouldn't cause any reactions with your skin. If the herbs should be organic, it's so different here in the US than it is in Israel, because in Israel, usually it doesn't have a label of organic. So I don't want to come out in statements. Do what makes you feel comfortable, I think would be the best practice when we're talking about trees and cinnamons and stuff like that. But I never noticed organic or non-organic on the remedies that I use. That's why. Any other questions or comments or ideas or things you would like to say? Ken, Tova.
Yeah. I heard that in Israel, this was a few years ago, that there was a lot of study on the elderberry, essence of elderberry or its syrup or whatever, that it would treat or pre-treat for the flu and shorten its duration. Do you know anything about that? And if
Elderberry.
how long with my elderberry, I have a bottle in my fridge in the door in the bottom, how long would it last?
I want to see. Samuk. Okay.
You know, elderberries, they're little teeny blackberries.
Yeah. It's called sambuk in Hebrew. Do I know? I personally don't know any resources on that specifically. Personally, I use it as a tri-plant to put in salad, just like I do with za'atar. So I don't use it in a tincture. I do know it's a great antiseptic as well to use. That's all I personally know.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sure. Almond oil for a base. How about glycerin? Once again, what is the source of this glycerin? Do you trust it? Most of the things that would come when we're talking about vanilla oil or rose oil might use glycerin in it too. Just make sure where did it came from. Did it come from a plant glycerin? Did it came from an animal glycerin? It can be a very different source. It's not bad, just know where the sources are. Yeah. Awesome. One last tip that I can give you if you are all in essential oils, get a eucalyptus oil and a peppermint oil and put it for respiratory system. If you have a lot of nazilit. How do you say? Like if you have bronchitis,
Sinus, like congested.
yes, use that as an inhaler, or you can put it on your pillow or on your clothes before you go to sleep, and then you smell it through the night, and it really helps you get that all out. Just thinking of tips during the winter time, although everybody's so nobody gets sick.
It says it's recording. Would anybody who missed the beginning be able to see it again, and how?
Yes, I will upload it to the Jewish Federation YouTube, and it will also be on the Jewish Federation website. There is a Shlicha tab in the menu, in the upper menu, so you will be able to find it there.
Or the Facebook page for the Federation.
Yes, it's also on my Facebook page and the Federation Facebook page.
Adi Shalev, we can find it on Facebook by...
Yeah, it will be Adi Shalev Shlicha.
Shlicha.
Okay. Okay. Keshet, תודה רבה רבה רבה. I see
Thank you. I'm always here as a resource if you need. So I'm free to do.
I see there's one more question before we say goodbye.
Let's have Carol. Feel free to email me, and I'll send you some recommendations, because it depends on the joint pain and everything. It's yeah. I will just say one last thing is I believe holistic medicine is very individual. So it all depends on not only your health background, but your mental health background, your physical health background. It's all related to each other. So I don't get the one thing cure all when we're talking about herbalism. I really try as a therapist to look at the whole picture of the patient and to see the entire background to be able to treat them better. So that's why I don't have like a, yeah.
How does
Keshet, could you write it?
how does herbalism mix with Western modern medications for depression or whatever? I mean, can they go at the same time, or do you think you should get off the Western to get onto the herbal, or vice versa?
So first of all, a lot of the medicines are coming from the same sources. We have a lot of antidepressants that are directly taken from plants that have been used. So it's not necessarily one of the other. I would definitely say if you're treating yourself for mental whatever, make sure that you're not doing it that in a way that will contrast your treatment. If you're taking a holistic treatment, go with the holistic treatment. If you're going with Western medical, go with Western medical, and make sure both of your doctors know about each other, because those two things can definitely counteract those two and creates more balagan than less. So it's not necessarily one of the other. It's just make sure that if you do it right. And Anna?
Yes, Anna. What do you suggest for a cleansing?
What type of cleansing?
Let's say a blood purifier.
Okay, so I would definitely put a lot more roots in my diet. That means garlic, that means ginger. They would help kind of circulate the blood and take everything out. Naturally drinking a lot of water. And if you're putting tea in the mixture, Achinitsia is definitely the greatest one to go if you want to kind of clean everything from the system.
I've been using a lot of ginger, ginger root, and I've really been seeing results for inflammation. My other question is, what about the water? My water source is city water. Now, I do use a double filtration system to take out particles and such. What would you say about the water we use?
I think they're pretty good quality water, I have to say. It does depend on the city that you're in. But from
They're
what
also
I've
in different states.
experienced,
It's important to remember.
yeah,
But Keshet lives in Minnesota and we're in Pennsylvania, so I
Exactly.
get our water from different.
we have a whole different, like the water in New York are amazing. For you guys to know, New York City has the best city water they have. So I would definitely take a look. Most cities' website have answers to that. So I would definitely take a look and check that out. Personally, I drink my city water, so I don't see any problem with that. And the last thing that I would definitely recommend is turmeric.
Turmeric, yes.
Root or the capsules. It's an amazing anti-inflammatory. That's great for everything. So
now I've been hesitant in using capsules because I feel like there's been the what do I call this, the processing of it. Does that take away the medicinal qualities? I mean,
no.
Does it get too hot, or is it boiled? I mean, what do you think about the capsules?
I think they're great. Most of them are just dried and then ground, and they work wonderfully. So I wouldn't, once again, if you buy a good brand that you trust their quality, then there shouldn't be a problem.
I usually try to get the root, but sometimes for efficiency, capsules, I've thought about it, but I've been hesitant to use capsules.
I would recommend them, definitely.
Okay,
I have a
thank you.
question about
you.
capsules.
Mm-hmm.
See, they're the size, in my mind, of a horse pill. I mean, they're just too big for me. You know, I have trouble swallowing or thinking about swallowing a lot of capsules, fish oil,
Mm-hmm.
where they are. So if they're a real capsule, they're plastic and you could pull them apart and the powder could fall. Could it go into applesauce or something? Could you suggest a way?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Could it
Shake.
go into cottage
Yeah.
cheese?
Mm-hmm.
It's
I only don't put it in hot beverages because you don't necessarily know how that would work. And try to have an oil base as well. So most of the time I would strongly recommend putting a tablespoon or a teaspoon of olive oil into either fresh food or shakes because it helps you absorb the vitamins a lot better.
Mhm.
Vitamins only absorb with oil and some vitamins absorb with water. So once you put some oil based in it, it helps you absorb it more. So
that's interesting.
yeah. So
So-
if you were doing a shake or anything, just put a little bit of oil in it.
So you said not in hot drinks, like tea is a different, like turmeric tea is a different effect.
It's a whole, yeah, everything is a little bit different because when it comes in a capsule, it's meant to be strictly digested in your intestine system. And once you heat it up, it does a whole different action than what it's meant to be. So I'm saying, okay, if we don't straight up digest it and we want to eat it as something, let's not heat it too. That's what I was just saying.
So when you cook with it, because I mean, I use
That's
a lot
a whole
of
different
turmeric.
thing.
Is it
Yeah.
different?
Yeah, because this is not a capsule that was made to be in. Most of the time, some companies would put probiotic in it or some enzyme in it or, you know, those different things. So fresh produce is not at all the same as a capsule for any use.
Mhm.
I mean, just try not to mix it. If you're buying a certain product to be used in a certain way, I would do what it says because we don't know fully what happened in the middle of processing it and how it can become. Fresh turmeric is a whole different concept.
So if you're using turmeric powder, the spice, it's called,
Mhm.
it's a spice.
Yes,
A lot of it goes in this Thai chicken that I make with coconut milk.
yes,
Is that going to be healthy? Is it helpful even though you're heating it up?
yes, but here's the thing. It's not meant to be a food benefit or like איך אומרים תוספים? It's not medically recommended. So when you put it in the capsule, it's not the spice that you use only in a little thing. It's a highly dried and highly contracted turmeric. So it to be affected. The spice doesn't have the same amount of active materials as the capsule, or we would just take a tablespoon of spice and we'll be done with it, right? It's a
Yeah.
whole different subject. So the spices are always great, but they are not necessarily have medical.
So they're for flavor. They're not really protecting
They're not doing any of
inflammation or anything like that. I used to
Yes.
think I was really helping myself by having this Thai chicken. But
Well, you're helping your taste buds and that helps you. So absolutely.
I was thinking my shawarma.
Mhm.
yeah, right.
If it makes us feel good, then it helps us mentally. So
Oh,
Okay, Keshet, toda rabba rabba. Thank you everyone for joining and for your great questions.
Thank you.
Keshet, toda rabba for your patience, your knowledge, and all your answers. And I think that's it. Laila tov, everyone. We will upload the recording to the YouTube, to Facebook. Okay?
Thank you.
Lila
Thank
Tov.
you.
לילה טוב.
Thank you.
תודה רבה, קשת.
בבקשה, ביי.